The Montreal Canadiens have earned at least 1 point in every game they've played so far this season, and Tyler Toffoli is the first star of the week. There's a lot of good going around the Montreal Canadiens right now. We'll talk all about it here on the latest edition of Hockey Inside Out. My name is Julian McKenzie, and joining me today are the usual suspects: Montreal Gazette columnist Stu Cowan, Jessica Rusnak of CBC Daybreak Montreal, and former Montreal Canadiens defenseman and NHL assistant coach Rick Green. Let's get right into it with the talk about the Montreal Canadiens. They are pretty much one of the hottest teams, if not the hottest team in the North Division right now. They've gotten a point in almost every game. Tyler Toffoli put on a clinic against the Vancouver Canucks. There's a lot of good about all these different roster players. Where do we start here? We got to talk about any guy who may have been surprising you guys the most. There are so many guys we've raved about, but the first question I want to offer you all is this: which player has surprised you the most during the Montreal Canadiens' impressive start to their season?
I'd have to say Romanov, just because he was the unknown quantity coming into this, a rookie. He's looked so good. He's averaging like 19 minutes of ice time a game, playing power play, playing penalty kill, confidence level out there. A surprise because nobody knew what to expect from him, really. I mean, Toffoli, we knew he was a goal scorer, and he has been putting the puck in the net to start the season. So I'd have to go with Romanov for that reason.
Well, for me, Tyler Toffoli, we mentioned, his name a number of times, and I don't know whether we knew exactly what we were getting when they signed him, because, his best year was 2015-16 with LA when he scored 31 goals. But, we're hopeful that he's going to continue at this pace, because obviously it's making a huge difference in the win column for the Canadiens. And what a nice player to watch, smart player to watch, and a real pleasant surprise, and looking forward to even better things down the stretch.
I'm going to have to go with Nick Suzuki, just because I thought he was going to have a good season, especially the way he played during the playoffs, and really kind of showed that he's that player that people thought that he could be. But I didn't think he was going to come off to such a strong start to the season, picking up a point in every game so far into the year. And that's a really positive sign. And I think that's what surprised me about Nick Suzuki, just how strong he was able to come in and start this season with the Habs.
The other surprising thing about Toffoli is here's a free agent who wanted to come to Montreal. And we've had so many years in the past when Marc Bergevin has tried to get free agents. Nobody wanted to come. He wanted to come here. He talked, Pat Brisson was his agent, who's a good friend of Marc Bergevin's. That had something to do with it. He sort of sold Toffoli, told him that he'd love Montreal, said his wife would love Montreal. His wife's a California girl. She works for the LA Dodgers. So they're here, and they seem happy. I asked Toffoli about it the other day. It might be more difficult for his wife than him adjusting to it here, just because they were on the road for 2 weeks. And she's in the lockdown in Quebec, but she on Twitter she posted some cute pictures about Toffoli coming home with his little dog welcoming him, and so just to have a free agent who wanted to come to Montreal in the first place, and the way he's performed here has been a pleasant surprise.
And he definitely sent a strong message to Vancouver. Okay, you don't want to pay me, you don't want to give me my contract. Well, you know what? I'm going to make you pay by scoring 4 goals against you.
Yeah.
Rick, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad.
Happy flight home for Tyler Toffoli.
I'm just wondering if he had a special bonus in his contract for if he was able to light it up against his ex-team. I know what it's like when guys go back against the teams that maybe let them go, how they are motivated and want to show them wrong. But he definitely made a huge statement against Vancouver.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, considering that the Vancouver Canucks had all that salary tied up in some of their bottom 6 players. They pretty much couldn't afford to bring Tyler Toffoli back. And originally I thought he was going to be a good secondary scorer for the Montreal Canadiens, and now he's at a point where he's pretty much leading the team in goals. I also want to just shout out Nick Suzuki as well, a guy who obviously has done very well to start off the season with his point streak, and he's earned himself comparisons to a Patrice Bergeron. Jonathan Drouin the other night called him a mini Patrice Bergeron. I was just curious what you thought of that comparison for Nick Suzuki.
I think he's as smart. I mean, at this age, it's quite impressive to see the way he's handled himself in all situations. And Claude is not afraid to use him in all situations. And the kid has been able to respond in such a positive way that he's not a liability, both offensively and defensively. And for that for us to see that happening at such a young age, man, oh man, we got some good things moving forward with this kid. And hats off to him. He's grabbed the opportunity when it's been given to him, and he's shown that he deserves every bit of it.
Yeah, I don't know if he impresses me more in the offensive zone or the defensive zone. I mean, every game he makes 2 or 3 plays where you just go, man, this kid's a smart hockey player. And I think, Rick, as his confidence level increases, he's realized, I think it's probably the same for any rookie in the NHL, right? You sort of, geez, I'm in the NHL, do I really belong type of thing? And he knows now that he belongs. And you see the confidence level rose in the bubble last year in the playoffs, and it continues to. And that's a fair comparison, I think. It's going to probably take him a couple of years to get to that level of a Bergeron, but the qualities, the similar qualities are definitely there. The hockey IQ, the 200-foot game. He needs to work on his face-off still a little bit. That'll probably come with time, but man, what a good hockey player.
And what impressed me also is his strength on his skates. I mean, he's not a big guy, but he is. He's obviously worked on his strength in the off season, because he doesn't really get knocked down that often for a small guy, and you got to give him credit for that. He's able to stand in there and a lot of times outsmart the opposition.
Yeah.
And I think the difference with Suzuki is just his hockey IQ, as you mentioned, Stu, that you have some players who are very talented and can play well, but they might not necessarily have the brain that can read a play or realize what's going to be happening next. And Nick Suzuki in his sophomore season, which a lot of people are saying, the sophomore jinx is when this comes in, he's completely avoided it so far and show that he has a great understanding of the game.
As you mentioned, Rick, he's not that big, but I remember a game, I think it was in Edmonton last year, after a practice or a morning skate, I was leaving the rink, and Suzuki was walking ahead of me, and he was wearing sort of a tight pair of pants or whatever. Just you see how big he is from in the legs and from the waist down. That's where all his power comes from, and that's the sort of the modern day hockey player, right? Sidney Crosby, that type of build where the weight and the strength all comes from the waist down, and he's definitely got that, and it shows when he's on the ice.
Well,
hockey players are always upset they can't find a pair of pants to fit them.
Sidney Crosby's nickname was the Creature for that reason, because he looks like a freak when you see him from the waist down. His butt and his legs are just so big. And you're right, they're not buying jeans off the rack at Walmart. I don't even think they go to Walmart NHL.
Back in the day with when Claude Lemieux used to walk around, and he had legs like I've never seen before, almost inhuman looking. It was monster legs, and this was a classic example of a guy that he didn't get pushed around that often, unless he kind of he flowered up with his little bit of his diving act, but he was strong legs up, good solid strong player. But anyways, Suzuki, great to see what's happening with this kid.
I've enjoyed the thorough analysis of lower posteriors. Let's move on to the next question here. Last week during the games against the Vancouver Canucks, we all saw the Tyler Myers hit on Yoel Armia, which resulted in a concussion for the latter. The very next game, Joel Edmundson says, you know what, I want to go toe-to-toe with Tyler Myers, with those two players going at it. I would like to know, what was your take on Joel Edmondson's decision to fight Tyler Myers after the hit that resulted in a concussion for Yoel Armia?
Well, if the NHL Department of Player Safety, which has to change its name because it doesn't seem too concerned about player safety, had actually done its job and suspended Myers, that fight wouldn't have had to happen. There's a code in hockey. I mean, Rick knows it better than any of us in this panel. Joel Edmundson answered the code, made Myers pay for it, since the league wasn't going to make him pay for it. I think more fans in hockey today are turned off by the fighting than turned on by it, since we learn more and more about the concussions and the impact it has on players later. But fighting's still in the game, and the NHL Department of Player Safety doesn't seem to want to do anything to take headshots out of the game. So Edmundson did what I guess he had to do, and that's part of the game still.
And I think it's a big character move by Edmundson to show that, hey, listen, I'm a new addition to this organization, but I'm for real. I'm a big body. I'm going to stand up for each and everybody on our team. And the timing was right by sending the message to opposition, because it's going to go beyond that fight. That, listen, don't mess around with us. We're a tight group. We are a character group, and we're all in it together, and we will be. So toe the line.
Yeah, and I think as soon as everyone saw that there was no suspension on Tyler Myers, you knew that this was how the game was going to start. And the fact that Joel Edmundson has fought Tyler Myers in the past when they were members of the Winnipeg Jets and the St. Louis Blues, maybe that played into it too, that he said, I'm a new guy on this team. I've fought this guy before. I'm going to go out there and use this opportunity to, really show my teammates the kind of person I am and to prove to the other team that we're not going to take that. And I think for many years, the Montreal Canadiens didn't really have anyone that would come back and really stand up for their players. So this is something that they were trying to set the tone for.
Yeah, I think the happiest person to see that was probably Marc Bergevin, because that's one of the reasons I think he went out and got Edmundson. That was to give a physical presence on the team. And you're right, Jess. I don't think Canadiens have been an easy team to push around, I think, since they had Brandon Prust. He's the last guy I can remember that maybe guys on the other team were a little intimidated by that he might drop the gloves. So yeah, Edmundson. I think that's part of the reason why Marc Bergevin went and got him, and he knows that's part of his job, and he did his job.
Rick, I feel like you might be the best person to answer this next question I have. Let's just assume in a world the Department of Player Safety actually suspended Tyler Myers for that hit. With the Canadiens in the situation like that, would they have to go out and fight Tyler Myers the next game? Would that be necessary?
I don't think so. First of all, you know what, the things that go on the ice, with the way the game is played, there's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of things that look intentional that are not intentional. But I think you really have to be careful with the ruling on eliminating some of the things that are just part of the game. Dirty hits, I'm all for. Guys have to be held accountable for it. But there's, other aspects of the game that things happen, and you have to be careful that you don't get them involved in every little thing that goes on. But I'm all for, drawing the line that, okay, if somebody really gets hit from behind, dirty hits to the head, they have to pay the price for that by suspension.
I mean, you go back, though, that Paul Byron a couple of seasons ago there, when he hit the Florida Panthers defenseman, I can't remember his name now off the top of my head, and Byron was suspended. But then when he came back the next game against the Panthers, he fought him, and it was a mismatch. I mean, Paul Byron was giving up like 40 pounds to this guy, and Byron ended up with a concussion, and you can make an argument that he hasn't really been the same player since then. So, it's the code, as they say, and Byron was suspended, and he still had to fight when he came back. So as I said, it's the NHL obviously likes this being in the game. Otherwise, they take it out.
Yeah, I mean, I still think it's just kind of unnecessary, but I mean, we could do a whole episode on that. Let's move on to the next question. The Calgary Flames are the upcoming opponent for the Montreal Canadiens, the fourth different opponent this team will see throughout their time in the North Division. Even though they're near the bottom of the division standings, look, you can't take anyone lightly in the North Division. I ask this question to you all, panelists. Do you think the Calgary Flames will provide a better challenge for the Montreal Canadiens than their first three opponents?
I don't necessarily know, because the Calgary Flames are coming into Montreal after losing 2 straight games. They haven't necessarily got off to the start that I think that they thought that they would. It was a little bit more bumpy. So this maybe can work more for the Habs' favor because they're feeling good about themselves, their road trip to open up the season. Whereas Calgary doesn't have that same kind of mentality. But then again, you don't know. Something might just spark with them and say, you know what, we didn't have the best road trip in Toronto. We're not going to let this continue when we get into Montreal and switch. But I don't know. I think the Montreal Canadiens are going to continue to ride off the momentum that they were able to build off that trip, even though they have a few days rest in between those games.
Yeah, and I think it's a tough call to predict at this point. I mean, we'll see soon enough. But Calgary's they're a pretty skilled team. They can skate. They don't give up much on the goals against side. So they're going to have to Canadiens are going to have to earn everything they can to score against this club. And I think they've had problems in the past of playing Calgary. They're kind of a thorn in their side, and we will see pretty quickly how they stack up right from the drop of the puck.
The Flames are going to be in a bad mood coming into Montreal. They lost back-to-back games to the Leafs, and nobody's going to be more upset than Matthew Tkachuk, who was at the end of the game Tuesday night. He was down in the corner, and Jake Muzzin flipped the puck at him. and Matthew Tkachuk went insane. A little anger management there issues, I don't know, but he went nuts trying to attack everybody on the ice, smashing water bottles when he left. So Matthew Tkachuk is always a spit disturber, as they say. And that's, we're talking about Edmundson earlier in the physical presence. Corey Perry and Matthew Tkachuk will be an interesting pairing to watch these next couple of games against the Flames. Corey Perry can do what Matthew Tkachuk does, but he has a lot more experience doing it. So those two, I'm sure, will be going at each other for the next 2 games.
Stu, I'm probably going to steal spit disturber from you. I know what you probably would have liked to have said, but spit disturber alternative. Let's go on into the power play here. The Montreal Canadiens power play has produced a goal in every game so far. I'm just going to read that again. The Montreal Canadiens power play has produced a goal in every game so far. We got to remember, this is a power play that sucked for like how many years, and now they've seen some success. Can we expect more of the same during their upcoming 5-game homestand?
Well, I think we hope so, because they're going to need it. We all touched on it before about how special teams are going to make a big difference with outcomes of the game. And judging from what I've seen so far with the puck movement and their net presence and the guys that can shoot the puck, they're not afraid to shoot it at any place on the ice and crash the net. And they're keeping it very simple. And I think the bottom line is they're getting results from it.
I think they keep it going for the most part, because it's not necessarily just getting into a groove that's worked for the Canadiens. It's the amount of players that they have that they can use on the power play is one of the biggest differences this year, maybe compared to other years. So I don't think they're going to score a power play goal every single game, but I do think that their power play will remain competitive.
Yeah, and as the legendary Red Fisher used to always say, show me the players. They're better players on the power play now. They have some different new formations. They're utilizing that bumper spot more than they did previously. Better players on the power play. I also think the fact that there's going to be no fans at the Bell Center. The Habs are horrible on the power play at the Bell Center at home. They were better on the road. The fact that they're not going to have 20,000 people yelling, shoot, shoot, for the full 2 minutes might make it a little bit easier and a little bit less pressure on them. So it might actually help them in that way, not having fans at the Bell Center when it comes to the power play. But yeah, there's better players on the power play. We were talking about the Foley before. He has that quick release. I think Jesperi Kotkaniemi, once he realizes, I'm sure the Canadiens are showing him video, that he's got to shoot the puck quicker when he gets set up there. I think we're going to see more goals from him also.
You mentioned with Kotkaniemi and the fact that he needs to change his shot. Like, how do you go about doing that? Like, how exactly would you practice that as someone who obviously doesn't play the game and is not nearly as talented as Jesperi Kotkaniemi is?
Well, I remember back with Saku Koivu, he every game, every practice, he tried to work on his quick release, and he would stay out after practice and feed him pucks from all areas of the ice surface and just work on his quick release. And it must be a Finnish thing that it's an area that they like to do better. And the upside with Kotkaniemi, he has the ability to be able to do it. Now he just has to fine tune it.
I think a lot of it will be video work, just showing him instances where he should have got rid of the puck quicker. And sort of just getting it in his head that shoot the puck. You don't need to tee it up, just let it go. Getting a quick shot away is often more effective than teeing it up and getting a hard shot away while the goalie's adjusting and sliding across the crease or whatever. So Kotkaniemi's still a young kid. He's still learning, and he's a bright kid. He'll figure it out, I think.
And also confidence can play in it as well. When he gets a little bit more comfortable in a situation and realizes it, that will help. But, practice makes perfect, and that's what he needs to do.
Yeah, and Toffoli spoke the other day about Julien and how he really likes the fact he's kept his lines together, like right since the start of training camp, and the same with the power play unit. So I think that helps with the guy's confidence when you realize you're going to still be out there. They're not mixing and matching and changing the power play or the lines up all the time.
That's another thing I'm also liking with this Montreal Canadiens team. We haven't seen these lines go through a blender yet. Final question for you guys here, and I'll start with first. Coaching strategy. How important is it in a year where the game, obviously, we're not in an 82 game season. We've gone down to 56 with the All Canadian division and several 4-game weeks and a few long breaks. How important is coaching strategy in a season like this?
Well, I think the best coaching strategy when you see 6 games in 10 nights is making sure you find a way to keep your players fresh mentally and physically. I mean, rest is a huge part. I mean, the guys really don't like practices, so there's video stuff that's going to go on versus on ice stuff. And I think it's going to be really critical so that they can execute everything game plan wise correctly to have them rested and mentally fresh. And, you know, that being said, I remember Claude used to always mix up the meetings, the power play penalty killing stuff. Sometimes would have that just in the morning and send the guys home and have the main meeting at night and vice versa. So these are all areas that the coaching staff talks about and try and put in place to have the players ready to go right from the get-go. And like I said, keep them mentally and physically sharp.
Yeah, and Julian has already said that there's not going to be many morning skates this season. That's going to become a thing of the past, especially if they practice the day before. Like this week, they're practicing Thursday, Friday, game Saturday. I'm sure there won't be a morning skate on Saturday. I'm sure the guys will let the guys sleep in, maybe have a bit of a meeting, video session or something like that. But yeah, as they say, rest is a weapon, and I think it's even more so this season. Toffoli spoke about that also, saying on that 6-game road trip, and Carey Price said too, just how the coaching staff was good at working in practice as well as working in rest. The games are coming fast and furious, so getting rid of the morning skates is one way to do that. And the practices probably won't be as intense. Maybe it'll be more working on systems and power play and stuff like that.
And Carey Price also brought up the point, the 3-game road trip in Vancouver. He said that he found it was easier to recover because it's not like you're flying out of a city right after the game, then you have another game the day after and you're tired because you've had the travel and everything. You just go back to the hotel, you sleep, and then the next day is game day. So I think the schedule might help out a little bit as well, but it's just a matter of fine-tuning things rather than having intense kind of practices because you just can't have it this year.
Yeah, well, after games, and we're waiting to get in the locker room on the road, you'll see the guys are all like riding stationary bikes after the game. Some of them are lifting weights. They have their post-game routine. And then, usually it's that they ride the bike, they do the weights, they jump in the shower, they put on their suit, and they jump on a plane and they go to the next city. So that's what Carey said. Now they can do that. They're not in a rush to get on the bus and get to the plane and take off. They can have their proper cool-down exercises, relax, go back to the hotel room, and have a good night's sleep.
And I think everybody has to realize, too, when you have a team like the Montreal Canadiens playing the way they're playing, I think it's entirely up to the opposition to make the adjustments to find a way to beat them. So it's a much healthier environment when you're winning and you're having success in a lot of areas of your game. So now it's up to the opposition. Okay, you got to find a way to beat us. Let's make some adjustments if we can, but the ball is in the Canadiens' court right now. They're controlling a big part of the way the game is played, and if they continue on that in that way, it's going to make it really tough for any opposition to play against them.
And especially when you can roll 4 lines and 3 defense pairings the way Claude Julien has since the start of the season.
And the Canadiens were able to do that on the road, and now for the next few games, they'll get to do it from the confines of their own rink at the Bell Center. That'll do it for this week's episode. If you have a question that you'd like to see us discuss, please leave it in the comment section below. Visit hockeyinsideout.com to check out our full episode, and you can even join the discussion with everyone else in the comments.